It's important to act now while you still have options. Optima is A-rated with the Better Business Bureau. Optima has already resolved over $500 million of tax debt for their clients. Get your life back. Call now for your free consultation. Call 800-375-2922. 800-375-2922. 800-375-2922. Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com. With Brian Kilmeade on Freedom 970. Portland's right place to talk.
Sergeant at Arms will restore order in the gallery. Sergeant at Arms will restore order in the gallery.
And that is the Vice President. That is the Vice President of the United States, and he's asking for some order when Brett Kavanaugh was just who had they were collecting the votes as Kavanaugh would ultimately be confirmed. But this happened multiple times, and I was listening on the radio. I wasn't seeing it, but then I saw it. Was even more horrified. And then when the Vice President walked out, he was greeted by boos and hisses by the great number of people across the street. With me right now is Rich Jones, a fine newsman here, handled the mornings for years at WOKB in Jacksonville, Florida, one of our great affiliates.
Welcome to Jacksonville.
Hey, thanks, Rich. First off, are you even though it's Washington, do you feel the anger and passion down here?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, we haven't seen that kind of electric atmosphere at, say, like a town hall or at a campaign event necessarily, so it feels like we're at a distance there. But you can certainly feel it, and it certainly comes through on the radio, on your show, and many of our other shows, our live and local show, a little bit later in the morning and through the afternoon. You can certainly hear that as well. But it also, I think the takeaway that we have in Northeast Florida is the Florida Senate race is really, really tight. When you look at some of the recent polling, it's been kind of back and forth, where Rick Scott held a 1-point advantage in July from a Mason-Dixon poll, and they're based here in Jacksonville. There was a little bit more momentum around the incumbent, the Democrat, Bill Nelson, and he was able to turn it a bit to about a 1-point advantage. So, I mean, you were talking about 1 to 2 point swings that will happen every month or so as a new poll comes in, and things in 4 weeks now are getting narrow, razor thin. We also have a big governor's race here as well. It hasn't bled too much into that. It would appear maybe in the ads, but not so much in the campaign trail.
Gillum versus DeSantis, the whole country's watching. Gillum is somebody who's had some legal problems over in Tallahassee. He seems to be able to shake that off, but DeSantis got off to a stumbling start when some comments he made were misinterpreted. But Republicans get the sense he's ready to ramp it up now. Was there a bit of a learning curve for the congressman?
I think so. I think, he's not run that statewide race so much. He did run for Florida Senate for a brief period of time when Marco Rubio was running for the White House, remember. DeSantis was running to replace Rubio, but he really had not penetrated the statewide audience to be able to kind of make the name for himself. And of course, when Rubio exited the presidential race, DeSantis went back to his House seat, and like that made the decision to ultimately run for governor. What'll be really interesting now is the impact that what's soon to become Hurricane Michael may have, because the Tallahassee mayor needs to be Tallahassee mayor as the Panhandle and the Big Bend area prepares for a possible hit. And DeSantis seemingly is playing the right political card in saying he's going to suspend a lot of the activities this week as everyone prepares for this possible impact from a storm.
Right, you got to be prepared. You see what happens in other cities when you have no infrastructure and when you're not prepared for catastrophes. Florida seems to have that down, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. You guys seem to be able to react. Also notice a lot of these lines are buried here. So in New York, when something hits, the telephone poles go down. You guys put the investment in, haven't you?
Yeah, but I would say that we also have tree damage and we have flooding, which are big issues. And storm surge is always the dangerous part of a storm. I mean, we get, even on TV, and you see it on Fox News Channel as well, Ryan, where you see the reporters who are out in the elements, and the wind is a big thing, but storm surge is always the most powerful, and flooding is the greatest killer in these kinds of events. And so it may not look as whether it be home in Mar-a-Lago or if he's done campaign events, it hasn't been the full-throated endorsement that maybe you would come to expect from this kind of campaigner-in-chief. For Rick Scott, for example, he's in Orlando today. It's not a rally, it's a Sheriff's Association, and so a number of law enforcement are going to be there. He'll likely mention, police chiefs, so he's likely to talk about Rick Scott, but I wonder if the way that the Trump campaign and the Scott campaign have worked kind of at arm's distance from each other, if that ultimately comes back to hurt the Scott campaign, we're gonna sort it out in the next 4 weeks, and we'll ultimately know what was or wasn't the impact of President Trump for Rick Scott's Senate bid.
His instinct is to put his arm around him because they are buddies, former business people who decide to get into politics and not take any money to do it. The negativity I heard is, and you tell me if I'm right here, that Rick Scott's worked very hard at winning over the Hispanic community on things he does, the attention he's given, especially the Puerto Rican influx after the slamming of their hurricane. They relocated here, some are still here. And he's afraid of losing that on the perception that President Trump is not popular.
All it takes is a moment. Remember Marco Rubio when he was running in that race for U.S. Senate on the Republican side with former Governor Charlie Crist. There was a moment in that race. It was when Charlie Crist gave a hug to President Obama when he came to Florida to tout the stimulus. The Rubio campaign used the hug, and they were able to see a huge spike in the polls as a result because he was able to rally the conservative base of the Republican Party off that one thing. So you talk about the embrace. What if Rick Scott is too close and too cozy from the perception with President Trump? How might that hurt and penetrate women, for example, and Puerto Ricans and others, as you mentioned? You'd never know at that one moment may ultimately be used by your opponent and how that ultimately will play out in these closing weeks of this campaign.
Rich Jones with us here at WOKV. Help me with this. Red Tide. Why is Rick Scott being blamed for Red Tide, where he was forced out of a restaurant, we understand, because of protesters?
Why he's... Because it's an easy thing to be able to put blame on something that's a really complex story to tell. It's easy if you've not followed it and you don't know the background of how this Red Tide situation ultimately comes to be. It's easy to be able to paint your opponent as being tied to it or somehow being blamed for it, because the average person probably doesn't take the time to actually research what causes Red Tide, and that it's far more than just one person or one policy that ultimately could impact it.
Right, and we'll see if he's able to explain that. Carrie Severino is going to be next. Our chief counsel and ambassador director of the Judicial Crisis Network. We'll talk about how Kavanaugh will be on the bench and the protests he might get. Rich Jones, you're the best. Thanks so much.
Welcome back.
All right, and I'll hang out for a little while. And thanks for the parfait. I think it came out of your budget.
I'm Todd Starnes with news and commentary next.
To experience relief from muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This non-greasy foam is proven to relieve muscle cramps fast and reduce muscle soreness. TheraWorks Relief can also prevent muscle cramps before they start, so you can get a full night's sleep without having to worry about muscle cramps. TheraWorks Relief only takes minutes to apply, absorbs quickly, and it works. TheraWorks Relief is a life-changing product, and you don't even need a prescription. Get TheraWorks Relief today in the pain relief aisle at Walmart, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens pharmacies, or TheraWorksRelief.com.
Lost in the political rhetoric of recent days is the idea that a person is innocent until proven guilty. The Democrats have demonstrated a complete disregard for the Constitution and their quest to stop the Republicans from radically transforming the Supreme Court using words like tyranny and immoral and evil.
We heard the Junior Senator from Oregon declare that this nominee would pave the way to tyranny. We've heard the Junior Senator from New Jersey describe Judge Kavanaugh's nomination as a great moral struggle in which there are just two camps. You're either complicit in the evil or you're fighting against it.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell implored his fellow lawmakers to consider the consequences of their behavior. We're in a very bad spot, America. One nation, yes. United, well, only time will tell. I'm from the 24/7 KXL Newsroom. I'm Dave King. A death investigation underway in southeast Portland's Lentz neighborhood. Police responding to reports of gunfire near 94th and Gladstone just before midnight. They found an injured man laying in the street. Detectives say the victim died at the scene a short time later. Cops did search the area, but